With Security Breach having been out for over a month, most fans have finished the game and gotten plenty if not all of the achievements. However, with the last game getting a DLC in the form of Curse of Dreadbear, we're now wondering if we could be getting any downloadable content for Security Breach, which seems to be likely. And if we did, what would we want to avoid in this new content? Those possibilities are what we're exploring today. Let's do it. And 10 meaningless collectibles. While yes, the collectibles are fun things that you can go around and steal all over the pizzaplex, I think that a DLC adding more collectibles that don't have any significance is a pretty bad idea. There are plenty of difficult to find collectibles already, so if you're to make more in a DLC, I think that they should actually have some form of meaning with those collectibles. Whether they're references or Easter eggs, it doesn't really matter, but we definitely need some form of meaning because getting all the normal collectibles that in reality are stealables, if you ask me, is already quite the task, especially if you keep the whole like you're unable to save after getting Roxy's eyes thing, because that is just some serious bad juju if you ask me, although nobody really has asked me. We all hate the mechanic, alright? And at 9, repaired animatronics. Considering how the whole point of the game was to destroy these animatronics so that we'd end up wasting enough time for the doors to open, repairing the animatronics in this DLC for whatever reason it might be would be a huge disservice to the game. Like, yeah, you might need them for something, but if that's the case, you shouldn't have to have them repaired. Plenty of different sections in the game use both destroyed and repaired animatronics depending on how you've completed the story. If you destroyed Chica and then go to Phaser Blast after the ending, you can end up having to dance around a destroyed Chica, so forcing repairs on these animatronics just destroys what we spent the entire game doing. We did it illegally, but also considering how the game is past 6 AM and will always be 6 AM no matter how long you play at that point, you can be fairly certain that they would not be able to repair the animatronics in time. And it ain't bug fixes. Okay, now don't get me wrong, this game is in dire need of some serious bug fixes, but I, along with I'm sure everyone else, would be absolutely furious if those bug fixes came in the form of a DLC. At least if the DLC is a separate purchase that we have to make like the Help Wanted DLC was. If I have to pay for bug fixes that I should have already had, there's going to be a problem. Because if a game is released unfinished, there needs to be a remedy to that in the form of updates. Easy updates that fix the major issues with the game, like I don't know, falling through the world. And if there is a paywall to get those updates, I think I know a couple of websites that can help me get around that. Because in all honesty, that's incredibly messed up if the bug fixes will only be in the DLC. But I don't think Steelwood would do that. I just get worried since they're still working on updates but also still talking DLC. And it's 7, daycare. The Moondrop daycare section was certainly a great bit of fun, despite the constant darkness and the demon chasing you. It was strangely like my mind, actually. However, while this section was certainly fun and one of the best moments of the game, I don't really want to repeat it. It took me so long to do properly the first time, so any reason to have to go back into the daycare, whether it be because we dropped something or whatever other reason they'd come up with, I don't want to do it. Do not send me back to the goddamn daycare or I swear to God. Like, it was fun the first time, but I'd rather not spend another 3 hours nearly ripping my dick off trying to find another generator. I don't want to deal with the daycare attendant at all, if that's possible. Just the fact that the first line as Moondrop is naughty naughty boy, it puts me on edge, especially for a kid who's like the size of a 4-year-old. Not in real life. I'm taller than a 4-year-old, I hope. Like, okay, look, it's just setting off all kinds of radars, alright? And it's 6, post-credits. While yes, I said another ending would be nice in another video, having any post-credit scenes should really be saved for the next full game, especially since we don't know where the next IP owner will be going with this series. So I'd like to leave the endings where they are, and any DLC should take place before the game starts or after 6 AM hits, since 6 AM seems to be the most logical time for any serious change to happen, since employees would be starting to come back and prepare for the day. So things like additional areas or attractions opening would make sense. Basically, the daytime protocols would activate. Or it could be like a DLC starts if you go to the main stage when Vanessa asks you to when you're trying to leave. When you're trying to get to the main doors while the daycare attendant's chasing you and she says, oh, come to the main stage. Yeah, that could do that. And it could start like a whole new story kind of mission with, wait for it, autosaves. That would be amazing. Someone in a recent video also mentioned that there's unused Freddy voice lines that say that the stations got hacked. However, firstly, that means nothing since it's unused, therefore it's not canon. Secondly, it still makes no sense, because if he's able to escape, why have the saved stations? Like, why hack them at all? It doesn't really make sense unless you want to screw with the business, since in the world of the game, the save stations do nothing for Gregory. They only help us in the game sense. Do you get it? Halfway through into number 5, post game. Honestly, I'm fine with the DLC taking place post-game, and it would make the most sense. However, I don't want to see a post-game DLC where you can't save the entire time. And that's what I fear the most when it comes to Security Breach, okay? If we're getting a whole new section of the game, basically a new game in and of itself, we'd better be able to save throughout it, which Steelwool might see as actually compromising the intended difficulty of the post-game, so I don't know what they're going to do. I had to put it out there again. If this is going to be some post-game DLC, you need to make sure that saving is allowed, even if the save spots are only available like in the sections pertaining to the DLC while the DLC is active or something like that, because otherwise it's going to be too much of a pain in the ass to actually get through, and I don't know how many people will actually want to play it if it's that way. Rather, they'd probably end up just wanting to watch someone else play it, which is fine if the person you're watching play it is me. And at 4 questions. When we get this DLC, if they do end up making one at least, I don't want to be left with more questions than we had at the end of the main game, alright? Scott loves to clear things up from previous games with the next one, and a DLC is a perfect way to do this. And he did this with FNAF VR and its Curse of Dreadbear DLC, with confirming that Glitch Trap was meant to be Afton. So, if we come out of this DLC with more questions than answers, while in typical FNAF fashion, I'm still not going to be a happy overnight camper. Like, bro, can you just like throw us a bone once and tell us like one of the big mysteries we have, or give us answers for that, like how Gregory and Vanessa know each other seemingly, or if Gregory is a robot, or who Client 46 is. Please, just give me that instead of questions, and I'll be happy. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, time travel. Seeing a giant ball pit for the first time in an actual FNAF game that wasn't when you had to buy it interests me, alright? Specifically because of the Fazbear Frights books and Into the Pit, and the story of the same name. Since in that story we see Oswald, who could travel between 2011 and 1985 by jumping into a ball pit in his local pizzeria that actually used to be a Fazbear joint. And honestly, that book being released and then the ball pit appearing in the FNAF game does not seem like a coincidence. So, it could be possible that we see time travel in this DLC, especially if they wanted to relate it back to the books and the Fazbear Frights books. However, this would be an absolutely terrible idea. Okay, I have once said that this could be a great way to change between in-game times. However, the whole day and night mechanic isn't a thing in the game. So unless they introduce that with this time traveling ball pit, or one of the ball pits being able to time travel, it would be a bit much. And honestly, it would probably ruin the DLC, if that's the thing. So if you're gonna make like a day as well as a night, then okay, I'll allow it, but if you're not introducing that, there's no point in a time traveling ball pit. And ultimately, in at number 2, more pizzaplex. Okay, so the pizzaplex is already pretty damn big. It's confusing to get the places you need to go. There are a couple shortcuts, but it is still difficult to get to certain places. I personally end up going probably the most complicated ways to get back to the main atrium and the like, because I can't be bothered trying to find my way around. But going through the Rockstar row vents to get down to parts and service through Roxy's room is the one way I know works. However, adding more sections to the already confusing pizzaplex could do more harm than good, and when it comes to something like this, you can't really add a different world space unless you make the story way too complicated. With something like Skyrim, the Forgotten Vale and Solstheim makes sense. However, with FNAF, you can't really have a whole separate area because the whole game takes place in a pizzaplex and not a specific province of a whole established world. So, more pizzaplex, while potentially making sense, could end up being counterproductive, especially depending on where we need to go. Maybe use spaces that we've already been in, or add fast travel. And finally, in at number 1, cash grab. The biggest concern that I have with a Security Breach DLC is the possibility of the DLC just really being a cash grab. And while most DLCs could be considered cash grabs, it's really a risk with FNAF in general, especially being new to DLC, like they only have had like one. And like previously mentioned, the confines of the pizzaplex. If it was something simple like mini games or multiplayer possibilities, I could see it, but the game was already $50. Add on to that the $25 or so that the DLC would run for, and you have the price of some of the highest end games, especially new games. So if there isn't enough content to justify that, I'd be worried about the future for the series, especially since we don't really know the motivations of the person taking over next, because we don't know who is taking over next. It's a slippery slope with a cash grab DLC, and honestly, if there's not enough content or mystery to justify the purchase, I'm probably not going to be purchasing it. despite being a FNAF tuber at this point. Yeah, that's what my life has come to. God damn it. That's all the time we have for today, friends. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been in Showerman Connor Monroe, and I'll see you in another video. Be sure you let me know what you don't want to see in a DLC in the comments.